Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Gay with God podcast, a safe place for us to share our stories and support one another. How long did we know? What challenges did we face? Did we lose our faith? When did we find our way back home? Or are we still searching? The stories you hear on this podcast will melt your heart and strengthen your belief that in God, all things are possible, and you can be authentically gay with the God of your understanding. I am your host, Midge Noble, and I am very honored that you are here. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Gay with God podcast. I am Midge Noble, your host, and I'm so excited that you're back with me again. Actually, I just posted something this morning and I alerted you that I was going to be doing this taping and that it would air on Monday. So now you have it. Yay, you. And I can't wait to share this amazing person that I've come in contact with. If you've heard of God winks, you know that when things are supposed to happen, they happen. And I really believe that this is what's going on. Karen Svoboda describes herself as a proud mom, lover of equity, and works best alongside justice warriors and advocates for public education. Karen has been in nonprofit management for 25 years. She is also the author of a children's book entitled Jolene, the Disability Awareness Chicken. She is the executive director at Defense of Democracy, whose mission is to educate the public about the value of inclusivity and the importance of emotional and physical safety for all individuals within the American public school and library systems. They support educators who present historically and scientifically accurate information and encourage initiatives that enhance Americans' shared experience regardless of race, color, national origin, language, gender, sexual orientation, sexual identity, religion, or ability. Karen, welcome to the Gay with God podcast.
Thank you, Midge. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so happy to have you here. And so I want to just open the door for you to tell us your story. I always like, especially our allies, to be able to sort of track their journey. Like what you can start with, how did you learn about homosexuality as a child, and bring us up to this dynamic defense of democracy that you're so excited about and doing so well with.
Well, I want to first disclosure, I must be on an emotional right now. I don't think anyone's really asked me my story yet. I do a lot of talking to people on the podcast, on our podcast, and I love hearing their stories. But I can already tell that mine is, not that mine's extraordinary at all that, but it is, this is a very emotional time.
Yes.
So I allow myself that.
And I allow you to have the tears, and I allow you to pause when you need to. It's absolutely a safe place here, and we'll take it as slowly as you need to take it.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I was, my background is I am Italian American. My grandparents actually immigrated from Italy into Ellis Island. So I am second generation Italian. My dad was Irish. And where do we get our understanding of, spirituality and a greater purpose? And it's from our parents, right? And so I was raised in a very my dad was Irish, by the way. So it was very, very Catholic household. We went to church every Sunday. It was, Christian, Catholic, church every Sunday, celebrated all the holidays, big Italian get-togethers, beautiful ceremonies. Homosexuality. And I went to actually a Catholic high school, and I then went to a Franciscan college. My father was a lifelong Republican. I am pretty open about that because I am very committed to the nonpartisanship within Defense of Democracy, and he's why. So I had this upbringing, two very interesting individuals, my mom and my dad. My dad, very conservative Republican, but also a very good person. And we would have, and I miss these discussions, right? We would have these where we wouldn't always see eye to eye, and we would talk about, whatever. And he was a huge environmentalist, by the way. So all of that might be, who knows what he would be right now, right? He passed away in 2009. but a big environmentalist, and we would have discussions about, who is running for office and why are you supporting John McCain when Sarah Palin's is running, like I remember these very lively, but we always respected each other.
Mm-hmm.
And about homosexuality, as far as my dad goes, he didn't discuss it a whole lot, but I
Mm-hmm.
do know that my dad was involved. He was a recovering alcoholic, and he was involved in Alcoholics Anonymous my whole life. I never he went into AA the day that I was born.
Mm.
And when you're in AA, when you're in Alcoholics Anonymous, you have something called a mentee. And that is somebody it becomes like your family, right? They're the person
Mhm.
you say to them, listen, I'm going to guide you along this way. You're going to call me. I don't care if it's the middle of the night, you're going to call me. And the mentee that he was most close to, and someone who actually he hired, and gave her a job, she was a lesbian. Okay. And he was aware of that. It was nothing we ever discussed, but it was always kind of like, this is someone who needs my help, and that's all
Mhm.
that matters.
Mhm.
And then I remember distinctly a conversation that I had. I'm sorry. You talk about your parents, it's like you
I
never get over
know. You never
passing.
give it a, I know.
But anyway, the discussion I had with my mom in particular, who was much more of the liberal side. Okay, so my
Mm-hmm.
mom went and marched against Vietnam, like, she was one of those. Civil rights and all of that. My dad was, in the military, and so they're very unusual pairing, but
Yeah.
anyway. They She spoke out, and we had a conversation. Really wasn't until after I got into college that I had a conversation with her, and I said to her, she knew a friend of mine in college. And this friend, and I was in college in the 90s, and this friend of mine came out and like as gay in college, and
Mm-hmm.
this was a huge deal. And it
Mm.
did not come out without resistance. He was actually physically attacked.
Mm.
Okay, when he came out. And I remember, and my mom knew him because she was actually his Montessori school teacher, right? This is how all of these dots are connected.
Wow.
So he came out, there's all this drama in my school, and it was horrible for him. It was just chaos. Um, and I went to my mom and I said, Mom, Eddie's gay. Oh my God. And she was like, Karen, Eddie has been gay since he has been 7 years old. It's like, what? You knew? And so it was just so, and it was very funny and it was very light and we laughed. And she was like, Karen, I always saw, and I'll never forget this statement. I always saw that attacking someone because of their sexuality or because they were gay is the same as attacking someone because they have blue eyes. I don't
Mm.
understand it. It shouldn't mean anything. And that was kind of the no nonsense upbringing I had with it. And of course, being a child in the 90s, there was a lot complicated outside of my house. So I'm not one to say that I was raised in this hardcore homophobic Christian household, but I also wasn't raised in this amazingly open,
Mm-hmm.
society and world, or even my household.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, more and more of my friends came out. If you're about my age, I'm in my 50s. As you get into like the late 90s, the 2000s, it becomes a little bit more acceptable for people to come
Mm-hmm.
out of the closet.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized one of my closest friends, who's still one of my closest friends to this day, came out as gay. Didn't see that one coming. My mom did. I will say that. She actually had some kind of radar, but she knew. She was like, "Oh, Chris, yes." So, I remember was it 2008 when the marriage equality finally
Mm-hmm.
came? It was '08, right? I can remember, and I don't know why at the time I had no children. I was sitting at my desk and I saw it and I just was so emotional then too.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember feeling like finally, like
Mm-hmm.
about time. And it
Mm-hmm.
was it was such a good feeling. I felt like our country had kind of advanced. I was so proud to be an American. I felt like we're leading.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that, and now you come to today.
Yeah.
Okay. 2008 to 2025. 16, 17, 18, up to 24, they're trying to push it back. And at this point, I do have children. I have a blended family. Between my husband and myself, we have 7 children.
Wow.
Tell me about it. And they're all around the same age. They're all between, our youngest is 16, our oldest is 22.
Mm.
And of these 7 kids, 4 of them are members of the queer community.
Mm.
Okay. So I'll say I have an L, a B, a G, a T. I mean, I really have a T, but you know what? Maybe someday. But like, I love them all, right? Like, they're just my favorite people. They're these little, they're all so different. Some of them are like really skilled learners. Some of them need help. Some of them, love science. Some of them just want to play music. Like, they're just watching, if you're a parent, watching someone evolve into who they are as a human being is just the most exciting and fun.
Aw. Aw.
And so, we're being a parent of children who are under threat now, and more so being aware that my kids are probably going to be fine. I use that word loosely because you never know what you saw some things get retracted recently that shouldn't have. Probably going to be fine. But my biggest concern is the children who are right now in elementary school and middle school, and what world they're going to be coming into, and what books they're going to have available to them, and how they're going to be told to be put back into the closet. That is kind of the genesis of defensive democracy. I remember watching all the censorship happening and thought repeatedly, what it was? It wasn't even the censorship. I was watching Moms for Liberty with the mask mandates and the attacks on librarians and like people who you would never think, like, we love our teachers. We love our librarians. They're gentle souls. They've picked a calling, right? Like, they're the best. And they're being attacked. And I kept thinking, I was watching the TV and I would be like, why doesn't someone just ... And I said that to myself enough times, and I was like, you know how to do this. You're a community organizer. This is what I do. It's going to have to be me. And that's a truth that I think a lot of us have learned, that nobody's coming in to save us, right? Like, it's going to be us. So now we have what I had envisioned, which is a national, because this is a national. There are so many wonderful local nonprofits, and we want to get all of them in our coalition, but it needs to be national because the fight is national. It needs to be nonpartisan because I have to believe that there are people out there who are like old school John McCain, Liz Cheney, Republicans, who just believe in small government and low taxes, and that's their thing, right? And we have had Republicans join. And so I want us to be nonpartisan, national nonpartisan nonprofit that could check that was specifically like a one-trick pony. I tell my volunteers this all the time. I'm like, there are so many big issues. We don't get involved in climate change or women's rights. Like, we don't do any of that. We do public schools. That's going to be the only thing that we're going to be really, really good at. And let the other awesome organizations that are handling those other issues handle them.
Well, Karen, let me just say, I was really surprised at that at first when I joined. I just thought it was just a national, global democracy thing. And then as I sat in the meetings and I started getting the gist that, this is just, I don't know why that pops up. I get a thumbs up for myself. Somebody asked me one time when that popped up on the screen, they said, did you just give yourself a thumbs up? Yeah, no. But so I sat with it for, a while, and I thought, okay, so is this the group for me? Because I don't have children, I don't, I'm not political as far as like getting on a school board or something. I wouldn't even know what to say exactly. But then I thought, I will be the change agent for the kids that I was. And, they deserve to have an easier road than we had. I didn't come out until I was 30 because of all the religious stuff. And so, and then the social pressure and all that other, and I really want the days back when we were safer feeling. We might not, there was still people being hurt, but our kids now in school should never have a book not available to them or to have it thought of as dirty. That's how people stopped committing suicide, is because they could find books in the library. They could be able to explore that with a teacher without the teacher feeling like she was going to get fired.
Yes.
It's ridiculous right now. So I just wanted to say that if other people might be thinking, oh, this is not the group for me because I don't have a little kid in the game. They're all our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're a family on this earth, and whoever we are that together, and we either take on the mantle of saving those who need saving, whether it's our problem or not at the moment. If it's a problem for someone else and we can help, then we need to help.
And that is, that's exactly, what you're saying is, I hear that a lot. Like, it was defense of democracy, and we don't call it defense of the American public school system.
Right.
Why don't we call it that? Because the attack on the American public school system is an attack on democracy.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And it's the weakest link. It's like nobody's watching the bar. Who cared about school board meeting? I think I had been to like 2 school board meetings in my whole life until this happened. And now I go all the time. But in my community, Moms for Liberty almost got people on our school board, because during that year, and I want to say it was 2021 to 2022, maybe, before everybody knew who Moms for Liberty was, that's when they tried to slip in, and a bunch of them got into those school boards. And once you get on the school board, you can cut all kinds of programs. You could ban all sorts of books, and then you could turn around and say, look at all this money I saved the taxpayers. We have no arts. Where was it? In Florida? Did they just, like, the arts programs? Okay. Like this, yeah, it's saving taxpayer dollars, but you're destroying your democracy in your community. So that's where, and we have grandparents, we have single people, we have students, we have veterans, faith leaders.
Yeah.
What I like about this organization is we get stuff done. Okay. We actually we move quickly. We don't have a lot of red tape. There is, we get it done. And
it's so easy to find. The way you've set that up is that, you type in your county and you can find groups within the national group that's your local group, or if you don't have one, you could start one.
Yeah, and it's super easy to start one. Like, we have the resources that we have put together so that people can access us real quickly. Every Tuesday we have a nationwide call, which tomorrow you're going to be joining us, because on every call we have something called an ambassador of hope, which we need, right? We have someone come on and say, don't lose hope, like, it'll be okay. And I'm like, so thankful that you're going to be offering that.
I'm honored to be asked. So awesome. Yep.
And so we have run that call every Tuesday night for 2 years. And we have workshops. We train people how to do peaceful protests, how to talk to the media, how to write a letter to the editor. So we want to be as accessible as we can, and so we have breakouts and all of this stuff. Starting a chapter is really just a matter of saying, I want to start a chapter. What do I do? And then we, get you set up with scheduling to go visit your school board meetings, keeping an eye on the news, watching what's coming around on your community. Like, it's watchdogs, really.
So since you've started this, what are some of the things that you're most proud of that your organization has been able to do for the kiddos?
Wow. I mean, I have to say that I am most proud of my volunteers, the people who have come together in communities where you would think it was a lost cause. Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Oklahoma, right? There have been battles where, oh gosh, what just happened in Pennsylvania? We had some huge wins where where because our volunteers were trained and they knew what to look for and they were attending these school board meetings, they noticed that they were about the school board, which was people who are not interested in allowing kids to read and explore and get to know themselves. We're banning some books and going to put in some very, very restrictive measures. And our chapter there got up and spoke and rallied the community and got the paper there, and everything was tabled. So like they called me up, and I love that too, right? Like I feel like I know everybody, like, oh, this is a win, and they're so excited, my phone's blowing up. And so I am most proud of my volunteers for taking initiative constantly, for working so hard. I mean, as a volunteer, you're not getting paid.
Right.
They're working hard because they see that it's working. That's an inspiration. So just, seeing all the things that we've been able to do in, places like Oklahoma, where we've got volunteers literally camping out over. Did you know that they camp out overnight?
No.
Oh my gosh. Ryan Walters it's ridiculous, but he's the state superintendent, and he's made it so hard for our volunteers and constituents to speak on behalf of their children that he would have like people line up so that they would be first in line, and then he would only allow 10 to speak. So our troops got there, and they are troops, like got there earlier and earlier and earlier. They were there 2:00 in the morning. Then they just showed up with tents and tables and coffee, and the news crew got them, and they were there the day before.
Wow.
Look it up. It's wild. So
That
this
is
is
awesome.
that's the kind of people that we're recruiting, that we want to get. Like people who are like, you want me to stay out overnight? My kids are at stake. I'm there. I'm there hanging out with my, what are they playing? Some kind of video game projected on the wall. Like they have fun with it, right? And that's part of that's part of the culture that we have here. Yeah.
That is so amazing. Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
So your kids are now at the age where, if marriage equality goes away, that's going to be an impact on your kids. What else could impact your family if things don't go well in November?
I think, yeah. So, I worry on a lot of levels. This is outside of the defense of democracy scope, but I worry what road our country is heading down.
Yes.
I absolutely look at this as like Germany 1927
Absolutely.
or whatever, when people have asked themselves, and we all do it, right? When you're in class, you're learning about, slavery, or you're learning about the Holocaust, and you're saying to yourself, oh, that would be me. Anne Frank would be in my attic, right? I would be helping the slaves escape. I mean, we like to think we would do that.
Yeah.
These are the days where you put your money where that mouth is.
Yep.
You have to be vocal. You have to be like you having these conversations with people. You cannot be a silent ally anymore.
No. And the thing is, and I've seen this in lots of different settings, that people are so afraid of the retribution. And a friend of mine and I were talking, and I said, the heterosexuals are starting to figure out that, they're getting attacked too. And we fear every day. I mean, we can't walk down the street holding hands in certain communities like my own without possibly something happen. Back in 2019, I was a part of the Chamber of Commerce here, and we were talking about the Christmas parade, and the lady in charge said, and any of you who want to have your business in or your group in the parade, fill out this form and get it into me, and it'll be approved. So I was running an LGBTQIA group.
Okay.
And so I wrote down that I wanted my gay with my group in, and that we were going to be walking. And some of our group got really nervous because we've never had any gay representative walking in the Christmas parade on foot. And, but we couldn't at the time. We didn't have money. We were just a group of people that got together and went out and played, pool and stuff. So I said, if somebody needs a car, we'll find the money. And one of our allies said, I'll pay the fee to get a car, and we can, and because we did have some people that had mobility issues, and so we put them in a car. They had signs on their car and decorated their car. I and someone else walked with a banner that said LGBTQIA and allies, and we were in the front, and the Proud Boys showed up.
Really?
Yeah, they did. And they had their big old guns on the back of that big old truck. And they stayed on the periphery, but the problem was that, the route was not just a straight line, and it takes a turn, and then you go into the backside of nowhere, to kind of end the parade. And people were really, really frightened. And the scariest thing that it was a non-issue, but I didn't know it at the time. So I'm walking, and I've got the thing, and somebody flies out of the crowd and grabs me, and I about
oh my God.
And it was a kid, like a teenager, that came out and wanted to say, I'm queer. I'm walking with you. And she kept screaming it all the way down the street. I'm queer. These are my people. And I'm like, oh, Lord. But it was very scary. And
yes.
That was one of those moments that I had to take advantage of that. And I was so grateful. And we didn't have a lot of people in the group yet, but, but our allies really showed up, and they supported us. And then we got reported because they said somebody in our group kissed each other walking down the street. And that was offensive to all the people that saw it. And I don't know.
Well, okay, but where did that go? I mean,
where that went was I was called to talk to the person in charge of, the Chamber of Commerce. And I said, well, if that happened, it could have been one of our allies kissing her heterosexual husband, because we had allies there as well. And I don't know, of the gay people that showed up that night, I said, there is one couple that was very fun.
Well, wait a minute. Like, you're allowed to kiss somebody.
Exactly. But that's my whole point that I said to the lady. I said, listen, did anybody else get policed for kissing somebody on a float?
Yeah.
Is it only the gay thing that y'all are hammering down on? And that is racism. That's homophobia. And I said, if it happened, it happened. And there's not a law against people kissing. And she says, well, I just needed to bring that to your attention. I said, fine. And I'm bringing it to your attention that we should not have been called out on something that's human sexuality. Yes. And it wasn't sex. We didn't have sex on the back of a board. We didn't have a flatbed truck. We weren't having sex on the truck. We were just having a car. I know. So, but that's how narrow it gets, and that you can't do anything without bringing it into suspicion or controversy.
Well, and we get back to like why it's so important for allies to stand up, right? Yes. Because you cannot, it's not that you shouldn't, you should, but you cannot fight this on your own. And it is at the point where the allies are going to have to be in the crosshairs as well.
Yes.
Right? If you're not willing to stand next to someone who's getting a stone thrown at them and potentially have it hit you, then you're not an ally. That this is where we belong. And I feel very strongly about that. And, I have people in my own family who will be like, oh, we really support, but, do me a favor and don't friend me on LinkedIn. Okay. You just told me who you are.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I said that on one of the Pride days. I said, if I'm holding a flag up and making myself a target on a march, you should be beside me holding it just as high. I said, because being my ally is not just saying to me in secret, I love you and I approve of you. It's helping me stay safe. It's helping me be able to be in the community. And, I know that's a big ask of people. I get it, but that's what an ally is there for.
That's what an ally is. Yes, exactly. and it's not easy, but these are not easy times. We don't have the choice in that.
I know.
Right? We don't have any choice. This is what our world is. We have a choice in how we're going to react to it.
Yep.
And that is an important choice right now because our children's futures and our children's children's futures are resting on it. And I would be doing this if I didn't have a single child. I straight up.
That's why I stayed in the group.
It's humanity, right? Exactly.
That's right. For me, I think it's our spiritual calling that, that's what Jesus was all about, is that Jesus was there for all marginalized people, whether it was politically correct or not. He was the biggest rebel back in his time. He always crossed boundaries. He shook things up. He said things in a way that they had to come after him because he knew that nothing would change unless he made a point about stuff. And, right now, I'm glad you brought up Germany, that we are headed right back to what is referred to as the good old days. You mean like the Holocaust and women being chained to the kitchen sink and, not being able to get credit cards and it's like The Handmaid's Tale. Seriously. So I don't understand how people can't see, but that's what cultism is all about. You can't see what you're in. And you're embarrassed or afraid to admit to yourself that you got yourself in this. Yeah. And it's not because you're a Republican. It's because you've taken the focus off of what it means to be a Republican. Because back in the day, we kind of flipped sides, Now Republicans are more conservative than Democrats, but Democrats used to be very conservative. It's a balance. It's all supposed to be a balance of opinion, not all of this scary shitola. Seriously. This is just downright terrifying. It's terrifying. Nobody on that side can seem to, I guess some can because some have crossed over, but you've got to call it what it is. And it's not about party anymore. It's about people. And it's about democracy.
It's about our fellow Americans.
Yes.
Who are LGBT and people of color and people of different religions, people of no religion. It's just huge. And I was on the phone with a Japanese journalist the other day. She's writing an article for her. She's a correspondent in Washington, D.C. It's a Japanese newspaper and it's going to be published in Japanese. But we had a wonderful conversation. And, she was really trying to get my feel for how, everybody wants to talk about what do we think about the upcoming election, what's going on with censorship. And, one thing she said was, well, I tried to get Moms for Liberty to interview, and she's like, and they won't. I'm like, and you won't. Like, I don't think I've seen any like legitimate journalist has been able to get an interview with them since like the whole threesome issue that they had. But she asked me at the end of the interview how I felt if I was scared about the upcoming election. And I'm scared about the upcoming, of course. It's a crossroads for sure, but I'm also scared about everything I see leading up to it. I just don't think that there's a win right now without real grassroots mobilization against these highly funded, politically backed entities.
Yeah.
And that's,
I agree 100%. 100%. So I was telling people the other day that we, instead of dining with friends, we need to have dining with votes and mobilize people to think about, how are you going to get to the polls and how, what do you need? And, there's the African-American community, they always ride people to the voting booths. And I think that's really smart. And, I think our community often just thinks, well, my vote won't matter, but this is going to be super close and every vote counts, and not voting is actually a vote for the person that you don't necessarily want. You have to vote. Yeah.
I hear you. And that's,
I told somebody the other day, I'm not voting for people, I'm voting for democracy. And I just feel like, I have to take what I really need in my life, and that's my freedom. and
Mm.
my democracy and my wife and my home and my health care, and I don't need you to be messing with my money. I I finally made it to 65. Do not mess with my social security, dang it. I want my
Mhm.
money. So there's there's lots of reasons why, I'm frightened for lots of things, but I do also believe that, faith is all about moving my butt. It's not just about wishing for something. It's not hope. Faith
Right.
is doing something that's going to bring to me what I desire. And
Mhm.
so it's a partnership for me with God, that I'll do my job, and I'm holding out, this faith that whatever happens, one, I'll be able to go through it and endure it, but also, that I want you to know what I want.
Yeah. Let me be
Yo, God, let
perfectly
me just
clear.
tell you exactly what I want. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to send it to you.
Yep. Yeah. And there is that, I mean, there is that part of me that's just heartsick over the co-opting of faith by these Christian nationalists
Mm,
who are now like saying, I'm a proud Christian nationalist.
oh,
What a horrible thing to say. What an awful, awful stamp you want to put on yourself.
I know. I know.
Disgusting.
We had a wonderful supply priest last year. And she said, I want to get a t-shirt that says on the front, I'm a Christian. And on the back, it's going to say, not that kind.
Gosh, I love that. What? Oh my God.
Yes, yes. She's awesome. She was like
Wow.
a JAG lawyer, and
Really?
yeah, and she told a very interesting story. She was on my podcast too, actually, and she told the story of how, as a JAG officer, one of her jobs was, during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell, was to get
Mm.
the people out of the military. If that was found, she had to, talk to them and then explain to them that they can't be openly gay here, and she was like taking people out. And she said, and at the time, she said, I really didn't have a stance on open and affirming or anything like that. And she said, but then the one day I sat, and she said, I would always have the people come in for a cup of coffee or tea. I wanted to have a face to face. I wanted it to be as kind as it could be, even though it was a horrible thing that I was doing to them, taking their career, taking their everything. And she said, but I sat across from this guy with my cup of coffee in my hand and his tears on his face, telling me how he couldn't change, and that
Oh,
if he could, he would have, that he tried and he tried, and that the only thing that made him feel like he was somebody was going into the military and defending our freedoms. And she still had to send him home.
oh my
And he
God.
said, I know that you have to do it. I'm sorry that it came out that I was, and I'm
Mm.
sorry that I lied, but I needed to be important.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was the day that she started looking into the scriptures, and she left her job and she became a priest.
Wow.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
because this whole story came out when she came to supply, I'd just gone back to church. I'd been out of church for a long time and never expected to go back. Couldn't even
Mm.
use the word God because it just tore me up inside. And so when I was finally able to walk this very hard journey to come back to who I was authentically, I reclaimed God as a term that I could use,
Mhm.
because, and I reclaimed my faith. I honored the story that I had, wrote my memoir, started the podcast. And it was like, I will be who I am. But
Mhm.
but I was very, very scared to go back to church, and I was scared to have another priest that wasn't open and affirming. And so
Yeah.
I interviewed everybody that came to preach. And so when I interviewed her, she said, I'm going to be completely honest with you, and I'm going to tell you a very horrible story about myself.
Oh, wow.
And she said, but if you'll wait till the end, she said, I think it'll be okay. And she disclosed that story to me in
Yeah.
full disclosure, that this is who I have been, and this is why I did it. And these
Mm.
are the horrible things I did to all these people. And now I'm here. So, yeah, there's so much healing when we can come together and tell these stories to each other, but
Mhm.
still be able to be there for each other when they're, getting knocked down now, because it's still
Yeah.
happening. Just because we have marriage now does not mean we're going to have marriage later. Nothing's Look at what happened with Roe versus Wade. I mean, nothing is in concrete. And that's the hard thing about being gay, is that one person comes into office and you have this. The next person comes in, they take it away. And it's like this
Yeah.
boom, it just keeps changing. And for the kids in
I
school, I mean, they shouldn't have to be dealing with this, we shouldn't still be dealing with this.
know.
And they're too young to speak up for themselves. They're too young to have a voice, where they
Right.
used to have a voice and now they're shutting down their
Well,
voices.
and that's the thing. Like, look at my youngest, who is a queer child in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and wow, there's a whole, like, most of their education has been
Yeah.
fairly safe and inclusive, and now, wow, every time you turn on the news, every time you hear me, in another room doing a podcast, what I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about
Yep.
has got to hit home for this person and
Mm-hmm.
other children in
Yep.
that same spot.
Yep. Yep.
So,
So that's the other way that people can find you, is through your podcast, Defense of Democracy.
mhm.
And how often do you post?
So our podcast, we have a new one, comes out every Tuesday.
Okay.
So yeah, and I have had some really great guests and great conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
it is fun. Doing the podcast is a lot of fun. You get to
Mm-hmm.
meet a lot of good people. But
Mm-hmm.
that's, yeah, the easiest way for anyone to get involved is go to defensivedemocracy.org, because we are so, with our donations, we operate on the $5, $10, $25 donations. Okay. So we have a very small staff. I am the only full-time staff person, and then we have a paid database administrator who's part-time. So everything's pretty automated. So if you want to get involved in defensive democracy, you go to defensivedemocracy.org, you click get involved, and then you take this online orientation, which talks about, where we came from, what our mission is, blah, blah, blah. And then you check off, oh, I want to join Faith Leaders Defending Democracy, or I'm an attorney and I want to join the legal committee. And there's all different ways. Like, we will put use of whoever, we will weaponize whoever wants to offer whatever skills you have. I don't care. Flower arranging me will find a role for you. And that's how we've been able to go from, a small, like you, right? Like a real
Mm-hmm.
small kind of like group of friends, to an enormous and very influential and purposeful organization at this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful. It's easy to do, and it's it's going to be hard if we don't.
Yes,
It's going to be a
absolutely.
lot harder. You're going to wish you had done something. And that's what somebody told me the other day, that they said, I kept saying, what more can I do? What more can I do? I'm doing all this. And she said, the answer came back, well, get up and do something else then.
Yeah. Figure it out. Do something.
Something. That's
Literally,
right.
no one's going to save you. No one's going to save you.
No
Don't
one.
complain. Do
Mm.
not complain. Take action.
Yes. Preach. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
So what have we not covered that you really want to make sure that you say, or something that we
Um,
need to know?
I mean, I think the biggest message I have is the need for people to get involved, which we have touched on. And Defensive Democracy is not the only group. There's a lot of other great organizations. As a matter of fact,
Mhm.
if you go to our coalition page, you'll find all these different local organizations from around the country that are part of our coalition. Getting involved, donating, right? A
Mhm.
$25, I mean, I got to pitch it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be doing my job. $25 recurring donation every month allows me to send a kit to a new team chapter chair, give them business cards, give them flyers, that covers the postage. We're able to do that. So having donations come in, like, maybe you don't have the time, donate. Take our orientation, find out what we're about, see if it interests you,
Yeah.
explore, have a conversation, and God willing, you are so inspired that you say, I'm going to start a chapter, I'm going to see what that's like, and you dip your
Mhm.
toe in the water and you follow. You're standing on the shoulders of giants at this point. We've been around a year and a half. We have some great volunteers who have been doing this from day one, who have absolutely turned the course of history in their communities by
That's
by
awesome.
having this together and ready.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Karen, I'm just so glad that I've met you. I'm so glad to be a part of this. And, it's just been something that, that I never thought that I would be doing, is even dipping my toe in this arena, because I don't understand things and I don't usually have this as the thing that I'm thinking about. But you're right. It's personal, and it's also Christian
Yes,
to look at
it
the
is.
people behind us and standing with us that don't have the voice or can't do it. So, if you're hearing us and you're feeling scared about the election, putting yourself into action, whether it's monetary or, boots on the ground, you are going to be a part of history that says, I put it all on the court. I did all I could. And whatever happens is going to happen. But we don't want to have the regret of saying, I wish I had done something.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Do everything you can so that you don't look back and say, I wish I did. 100% love that.
Yes.
Well,
Well, then
Midge,
I will see you tomorrow,
I
and
will
I
see
will be
you.
your ambassador of hope. And yay. At first,
Love it.
when you asked me about that, I thought, now let me think. Do I have hope? Hang on, just a minute. I just did a podcast of that. Where did I land?
Yeah.
Where did I
I
land?
mean, no joke. Like I put a message out to like all the people who are listed as faith leaders, and one guy did reply. He's like, "Sorry, I don't have any right now." I was
Oh,
like,
bless
"Oh
him.
man, maybe you should
Oh,
come to the call then."
yeah. Then please come. Well,
I
thank
get
you.
it.
Thank you. And I will have Karen's links on the show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com. And if you have any questions, you know how to reach me, of course. So remember, everybody, check out our Facebook group, Gay with God, where we do a monthly Zoom group entitled My Faith Journey. If you need support to help yourself coming out or through your faith journey, go to that show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com. Scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you'll see how you can connect with me. I do a confidential and free first meeting just to see if we're a match and to see how I can help you. Also, remember that if you need anything at all, as far as just a visit, if you're feeling very depressed right now, if you're feeling like you're not going to make it, please email me at empoweredmidge@gmail.com, and I will set up a free visit, a virtual visit. You can do this no matter where you are, because I want all of us to make it to the other side. If you are listening to this podcast and you are questioning whether you can be gay and be in a relationship with the God of your understanding, if you identify as LGBTQIA+, or not even sure if you're gay, God has always been within you. Even when you didn't know it, you have always been gay with God. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned to see how you can join the Gay with God community. And as always, you are loved. I want to invite you to become a part of the Gay with God community. How can you do that? Stay connected by messaging me your thoughts and comments in the comment section under the downloads of the show on the Gay with God show page. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and share so we can increase our community outreach and be a light to those who are struggling to claim their faith. Consider being a sponsor so I can highlight your service in our community. We are all worthy of respect and a relationship with the God of our understanding. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this podcast. Together, we as a community will keep this show visible and our community stronger. Deep gratitude to my friend Tim McClendon of Tim McClendon Music for allowing me to use an excerpt from Interlude 4, a song found on his CD entitled Sundance.